All right, let's bring John into the conversation on the NFL as the Eagles mandatory OTAs begin today. And Carson Wentz showing up for the mandatories. Not cleared, John, but still out there. And I would assume that he's not going to get cleared, anytime before the training camp here. But it's still nice to see him out on the field and doing things.
No, he's not going to be cleared till training camp. Real quick, mini camp starts tomorrow. Just assistant coaches were available to talk to the media today. So the on-field stuff in the mini camp starts tomorrow. Carson will be out there as he has been throughout the spring in the OTAs. He'll work in individual drills, and he'll do some work in 7-on-7s, which is a lot more than we thought we'd be seeing this time of year. But remember, when you have surgery, when you have ACL, LCL surgery, got to get cleared by the doctors, and that becomes a math equation. And there's just a certain amount of time you have to be for the structure to be repaired properly. And that's generally about, as we've said, 9 months for that type of injury. So he's not going to be cleared for team drills for a long time.
Yeah, and we'll figure that sometime during training camp, that will really be the story, when he will be cleared and when he will start practicing, because now everything seems sped up that I never thought he would be in training camp or playing in exhibition games, but I guess now we'll have to keep our eye on that.
Yeah, I've said from the start, I can't imagine him playing in an exhibition game, only because, not that he couldn't, I think he'd probably be able to play the way he's going by certainly the fourth one. Just they're so meaningless at this stage. I can't imagine they would dare put him at risk in that type of environment. And that's the way the league is going as a whole. You see starters and important players, even healthy starters, playing less and less and less, and that's just the reality of the current NFL. So I never thought he was going to play in the preseason. I still don't think he's going to play in the preseason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't see him playing in the preseason either. I'd be pretty shocked, although I've been surprised at where he is at this point anyway, and I know that it just, to me, I don't know how the right time is to get him and just put him in the game. I mean, that to me is the crazy part of this whole thing. And what, I don't know what he's doing at these OTAs and these mini camps coming up this week, but just to say, hey, week one, you haven't played in any games. I don't know how much clearance he has in the training camps, but that's why I wonder if he will be ready to play in that first game if he doesn't really do much in training camp.
Well, I think the key is being cleared for practice, because I think a lot of people need to realize that from a coach's standpoint, if you're cleared for practice, that's just as important as playing in a preseason game. And a lot of times it's more important because you can work on what you really want to work on. So I think when you see that all clear for practice, whether that's a week before the opener, 2 weeks before the opener, then you know Carson's on track to play in the opener. If he's not able to be cleared for practice, then that's when you say he's not going to play. Ultimately, as I said, I think he'll be there. And really, from the football standpoint, from Doug's standpoint, that's where you have to lean on the medical people and the medical staff. That's not his decision. That's not Carson's decision. That's out of both of their hands, and that's a medical decision. So you have to trust your medical people and thank that, your medical people aren't the Sixers medical people. That's a shot. That's unfair.
Well, I know ESPN put out their top 99 storylines for the 2018 season, and number 8 on that list is Carson Wentz. He came in the category of rising stars returning from injury, and they basically said, look, when healthy, Wentz is an annual MVP candidate, and that, obviously when he gets back out there, but I think it is a very high, number 8 out of 99 storylines in the whole league about when he will be ready, and I think maybe we're not going to find out much at these OTAs, but he has been cleared for 7-on-7, but that's been about it.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that's that low, to be honest. I mean, you're talking about the Super Bowl champions, and you're talking about the starting quarterback versus the Super Bowl MVP. So, to be honest, I think that's even a bigger story as far as the next NFL season, as far as when he gets the job back, when he takes over. It's not about winning it. It's just about when he's healthy and when he takes it over. I think everybody will have their eyes on that, and rightfully so. And they're right. I mean, this is anytime you're an elite quarterback in this league, you're in the conversation for MVP each and every year, and that's where the Eagles expect to be with Carson Wentz.
They also have number 40 storyline on that list is backup quarterback who can make a difference. Nick Foles was at the top of that list, and we all know that the Eagles love their backup quarterback situation with not only Foles, though, with Sudfeld as well.
Yeah, they do. They like Nate a lot, and obviously, I mean, Nick's already proven himself that he could take a team and take it all the way to the Super Bowl. I think your only question is Nick Foles, is if you have to rely on him throughout the entire season, if he's got to play 13, 14 games, is he that type of quarterback? And I would lean towards no, but I don't think there's any backup quarterback in that category. And generally, when they are Tom Brady back in the day, it's because, well, they probably should have been starting, and people just haven't realized it yet. And I think at Nick's stage, I think we kind of know what he is, and that's an average type starter if he's got to play over a full season, and probably the best backup in football.
John McMullen with us, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. So you said the assistants were available today, John, and you have an article posted on our website at 973ESPN.com about Dave Phipp, and I thought it was very telling that of all the areas that Doug Peterson singled out way back at the NFL Combine of a place where he thought the team could get better, it was special teams. So I'm sure you got some insight from Dave Phipp today on that. What did Dave Phipp have to say about how special teams are shaping up on the next version of the Eagles?
Yeah, a lot of moving parts for a number of reasons. Obviously, last year, I think if you look at the Eagles really since Dave has gotten here, and he got here with Chip Kelly in 2013, special teams had always been a strength of the team. A lot of that is because I think the Eagles were ahead of the curve in trying to get players who excelled on special teams as opposed to just backup players. So whereas other teams in the league would take the best backup linebacker they have, the best backup safety, even if they weren't good on special teams, and try to pound the square peg in a round hole, the Eagles got out and got people like Chris Maragos and Brian Bremen, who really excel at that part of the game. And I think their biggest issue last year, taking a little dip, had to do with injuries. They lost Darren Sproles, who's one of the best punt returners that ever lived. That's hard to replace. And they lost Maragos, who's one of the best coverage players in this league. And it's not easy to replace those kinds of guys. And I think people don't think, especially Maragos, they know Sproles, but mainly for his offense. They don't think about him as a returner and what he does for the team there. So they lost some really, really good players, and I think that's why they took a hit. But you have so many moving parts, as I mentioned. You have all the rule changes on the kickoffs, which completely changed that aspect of the game. Donnie Jones is gone now, and Cameron Johnson's the only punter in camp. And you know, Dave didn't crown him today, didn't say he was going to be the punter, said he was going to compete against everybody else in the league, meaning if they see a guy cut somewhere else and they think he could be better, they could bring him in. But he also, on the other hand, said they have tons of confidence. So I think Cameron Johnson's going to be the punter, and that's a big change. So you have two very young kickers in the kicking game, with Jake Elliott being the place kicker. And it's really been a shift. And when you have such drastic shifts, it tends to be a growing process. But Dave Phipp has proven he's one of the best special teams coordinators in this league, and I think he'll get those guys up to speed.
Are you surprised, John, with how that punting situation was handled, where Donnie Jones said he didn't want to be there and then said, oh, well, maybe I would like to come back, and they said, nope, too late, we've moved on? I mean, are you surprised that they didn't even consider maybe Donnie Jones coming back?
No, that's not the way it happened from the Eagles' perspective. The Eagles kind of pushed Donnie Jones toward retirement because they wanted to replace him with Cameron Johnston. And Dave Fipp basically admitted to me today that he would have beat him out last year, but he still needed work as a holder,
okay,
which is another one of those jobs that people don't think all that much about. So the Eagles were on the cusp of making the change last year, and they wanted to make it this year for a number of reasons. One, monetary, in that Donnie is a long-time veteran, makes a lot of money for that position. They could get much cheaper with Cameron Johnston, who's a first-year player, and they think have a similar upside, at least down the line. And for a team with salary cap issues, that's more important than you would think, maybe, on the surface. So it wasn't like Donnie decided he was going to retire and then decided he was going to unretire and the Eagles would ask him back. The Eagles kind of said, hey, look, we're looking to move on. Do you want to go out on top? And I think Donnie said, yes, I'm going to retire, and then rethought that. But once he rethought it, that's a personal decision from him. The Eagles had already decided they were going to move on.
And then you talked about the fact that it's overlooked that the punter is the holder for Jake Elliott. Is that something that they saw trouble with Cameron Johnston? And how quickly can he get up to speed on that? Is it just reps and experience?
Yeah, it is just reps. And the Eagles let him hold throughout the entire preseason last year. And that was why they were trying to get him up to speed. And Dave kind of admitted he wasn't entirely comfortable, and that probably made the difference. And they told him, this is what you got to work on, along with his punting and what he needed to improve on there. And he said he's much improved as a holder. And when they became comfortable with that aspect, that's when they made the decision that they were going to go in a different direction. And hey, look, he can go into the preseason, have a terrible preseason, and they might look outside the organization. But they don't expect that to happen. They expect Cameron Johnston to be their punter this year.
Yeah, that was my follow-up, was what if he comes into the preseason shanking them left and right and can't cough and kick anybody or keep people inside the 5-yard line? Have they painted themselves into a corner by only having one punter on the 90-man roster?
No, well, I thought it was strange, and I asked Dave that today, and he explained, look, we don't have another punter on the off-season roster, but we're watching everybody else, and they're going to be keeping abreast of all the punting duels around the league, and if somebody's on the waiver wire, they can pick him up, and if he does struggle, that's any kicker, and you kind of saw it last year when Caleb Sturgis got hurt. The Eagles weren't looking to replace Caleb Sturgis. They thought he was a very good kicker. He had been very successful, but he got injured. They had to go find one. They got Jake Elliott off the Bengals practice squad. All of a sudden, he's kicking 61-yard field goals, and you're Wally Pipp, and you're replaced. So that's life of a specialist in the NFL. So just because it looks good for Cameron Johnston today doesn't mean it's going to look good for him tomorrow unless he continues to perform and continues to make the Eagles happy.
Hey, that list of the 99 stories had some interesting things on it. Coming in at number 64, they listed the players set to cash in if they have a big year, and that was Ronald Darby. And I was kind of interested to see, how the Eagles view him moving forward. I mean, is he a guy that's playing for a contract?
Yeah, he's on the final year of his rookie deal, so that's one of the issues, and that's why you heard a lot of rumors about Ronald Darby possibly being put on the trade market because he is a good player and he's going to make a lot of money next year. I don't think there's any question about that. The only question is what kind of year does he have? Does he have an okay year? And if he has an okay year, he's going to be paid a lot of money. If he has a great year, then all of a sudden it's going to be exploding type money, top 10 cornerback type money. And we've talked about this team before and their salary cap issues. They only get worse next year because they won the Super Bowl. They have a lot of stars under contract that make a lot of money. And Darby's one of those guys who could really they could lose because they're just not going to be able to afford him. And that's why some people put 2 and 2 together and say potentially they could deal him. Now that's slowed down quite a bit since Darryl Worley's arrest and his release, but that was the thought process of all those rumors because he's going to get paid next year.
Hey, John, another one on here, a player in the category of potential trade bait was Jay Ajayi, and I would see that maybe that would be something that would be down the road, but not before the season starts, right?
Well, that's another one. Same category. Last year was a rookie deal, and it's even worse in some ways because you know how this league is with the running back position. You don't like to pay that second contract where you have to pay significant money. And then on top of it, you have a player who's got chronic knee issues. So I think that's where people speculate. But I don't think the Eagles are looking to trade him. I do think it's going to be a one-and-done type thing, 1.5 and done for Jay Ajayi. I think he's going to play out his contract and probably go somewhere else next year. But I think the Eagles want to take advantage of him when he's cost-effective and they can afford him. And then when he's not, I think they're going to probably let him walk.
All right, John McMullen at JF McMullen on Twitter and, of course, 973ESPN.com. The mandatory Eagles OTAs begin tomorrow. We'll see you anticipating everybody being there?
Yeah, Michael Bennett's going to be there. Darren Sproles is going to be there. So those were the only two veterans that were not at the OTAs, and they'll be there for the mandatory mini camp. So, it's going to be a full boat. Now, remember, a lot of guys are injured and not going to be available to take part in team drills. Some of them will do individual work. All the names you've heard, Jason Peters, Jordan Hicks, Chris Maragos is doing a little bit. They won't be ready to go full bore, but they'll be here.
Will they make Michael Bennett available tomorrow, do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be available. He knows what's coming. He knows what's coming.
That's the part that's probably most anticipated, right? The size of the crowd. But they won't make him available at the podium, which would make sense since everybody wants to talk to him, right? They'll just cram you all in the corner.
It'll just be 50 reporters. Well, on the mini camp, they're going to let us get some players on the field, which makes it a little bit easier. But still, it'll be difficult, and they probably should put them at the podium. But why make things easy, Pete?
Of course. All right, John, it all begins tomorrow. Take care, pal.
All right, take care, guys.